Okay, my slides. I want to go after some interesting kinds of concepts and play with them a bit. One of the things that's so exciting about the American Heart Association, American Stroke, is that we're very much concerned about prevention. And I'd like to play a little bit, maybe debunking some of the prevention myth and have us rethink a bit in terms of where I think we're going for the future. If I can get the slide thing to work here. Okay. You know, it's really interesting. If I wake up on a given day, I never look out the window and say, wow, what a beautiful day it is today. I think I'll avoid illness and disease. So prevention isn't going to be the driver for me. It's doing what I want to do, how I want to do it, when I want to do it, with the quality in which I want to do it, with the endurance that I need to do it, with whom I'd like to do it. So it has to do with readiness. It has to do with resilience. It has to do with endurance. It has to do with hardiness. It has to do with mindfulness. And it has to do with balance. In fact, it has to do with life. And again, we'll talk about it later. This organization talks about life is why. They're dead on target right. It's about how we add years to our life and life to our years. About optimizing, maximizing, and savoring life. Again, balance, readiness, resilience, mindfulness, endurance. Our health care system is really not a health care system. Some people say it's a sickness system, but I don't think we really are a sickness system because we really deal with episodic issues of unhealth. We take them to a manageable realm, and then we often stop there because we don't see people 24/7 in a continuous way. We're so good at rescue reactive care and managing exacerbations of disease. So I thought, let's go back a little bit and start thinking where a lot of this comes from. So there are basically two strains of thinking that we have in Western thought, that drive Western thought. Pre-Socratic influence. We have Parmenides that says everything is fixed and permanent. They're essences. We need to understand the essence of what something is and act in accordance with it. We have our evidence-based guidelines to help us do this and whatever else. And the other one is Heraclitus. He says things are always changing. We never step in the same river twice. Now that translated into the difference between determinism and freedom. And when we talk about adherence, we're basically talking about that determinism and freedom play. But things change. Everybody's different. We're different during the day. Shift happens, right? So freedom, determinism, and responsibility become an interesting component. We talk about accountability. Accountability is imposed by somebody else. Freedom entails responsibility. So that's a whole different way of thinking. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre talks about the coefficient of adversity. He says, if I'm I'm on my way to grandma's house and there's a rainstorm and it dislodges a rock and the rock blocks my path, I can give up and say, hey, the rock's blocked my path. I can't do it. I just can't go. Or I can scale the boulder. If I scale the boulder, I might find there are 3 ways to grandma's house that given that, I never would have known. So we as persons, not patients, we as persons instill meaning in our lives. If things are sufficiently important to us, if things matter to us, we can do pretty much anything. I work in San Diego with the Be There initiative to reduce cardiac and stroke death. And the way in which we engage folks there is not about giving them information and education. That hasn't always worked. We have a picture of grandpa playing chess with grandson, and slowly grandpa fades out of the picture. Or we have mom and the 3 kids and dad, and mom slowly fades out of the picture. We need to be there for the ones we love. That's the driver. It goes to the amygdala. Brett, you do with that stuff, don't you? Sartre also talks about this freedom determinism. He says, real freedom, pure freedom, is like skiing and leaving no tracks in the snow. The world unfolds before you. That's how we live our lives in the present in an ongoing way. Oops. So life is why. So what's the good life? So the ancient Greeks said that health is a precondition for a better life. Prevention is not the goal. It should be a subset of health. And I'll talk about that in a moment. For the Greeks, health was a cardinal virtue expressed that this is the mean between the extremes of self-indulgence and self-neglect. Great definition of health. So it becomes a skill with appropriate guidance that we refine, that we enhance. Sound mind and a healthy body. So true engagement, as we've heard from several people, particularly when Jim and the panel were talking a moment ago, this whole idea of magic and making it easy. We want continuously available 24/7 ability to make a difference in our life and to use a platform of diverse ecosystems that work together towards giving us the ability to promote and to sustain life. I don't remember who it was. Someone just spoke and mentioned the 300,000 health apps that we have, healthcare apps. I think there's about 450,000. And about a year ago at Qualcomm, a Life meeting, AMI had done an assessment of the value of those wonderful apps. And the penetration or sustainability over 6 months as a mean figure for people continuing to use them was 0.03. Oh, I'm sorry, 0.06. Less than 1%. Not good. So we want the right technology for the right person at the right time, which my friend John Madison, who couldn't come here and be here today, who was going to be, can create what he calls a behavioral symphony of wellness. Wonderful concept. And again, by using large data sets, we can invite comparisons of value, effectiveness, and efficacy to make the right choice the easy choice, and realizing that this is not daunting. Again, Jim Malt talked about the ability of making it really, really simple and making it really, really passive. And giving people confidence that it's not so daunting. Even small changes can make a huge difference in our life. The difference between 6 and 8 hours sleep, avoiding processed foods, understanding that if you sit for 3 hours, your body metabolism reduces significantly, you're going to gain weight. You're going to eat more carbs if you're too tired, and just things like that. Each of us is the key to add years to our life and life to our years. That's that coefficient of adversity, that skiing and leaving no tracks in the snow. A friend of mine used to be the legal counsel for the American Medical Association, and he told me something that I thought was just amazing. He said, there's only 2 types of physicians I've learned in all my years at the AMA. There's the victims and the vanguards. But what has taken me a long time to understand is that each one is both. It depends which button they're willing to push and what we're willing to push. And it's not just for physicians. Each of us has the choice of being a victim or a vanguard. We can be in control of what we do. Back to Socrates, health is a virtue, and its subsidiary virtues of healthy eating, sleep, mindfulness, social connectedness, activity, coupled with temperance, prudence, and fortitude can help us towards well-being. Interesting, in the Hippocratic Oath, I had done some work with a Greek translator looking at the ancient Greek, and found it really, really interesting. Just as an aside, do no harm, Hippocratic Oath doesn't say that. That's a Latin aberration from the Greek. What it does say, I shall actively exclude. It's an activity. Why would you write a whole corpus on what not to do? It's about what to do. But he says, I shall use regimens in caring for the sick. And the word that he uses for regimens in Greek is diatia. It's the word that we get the word diet from. So, but he didn't mean healthy eating. He meant a healthy way of life. A healthy way of life that we embrace and integrate into what we do, which Eric, you brought up very well earlier. So it's the way we live our life, a healthy lifestyle. It's not about promoting a behavioral change. It's about integrating that into the way in which we live as vanguards. I was thinking about something the other day because health is just such an interesting thing, and people like to talk about the World Health Association's definition of health, and I thought it's almost 81 years ago. We haven't come up with another definition of health. Then what was so exciting, it was just not the complete physical, it's a complete physical and mental social well-being, not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. And traditional prevention has strong alignment, but what if we move beyond who to you? What does it mean to you? So I started thinking, well, gee, let's think about prevention, in a different way. We don't need this, sorry. So I started thinking, prevention, huh? Remember I went back to, I started off saying I never welcome the day with, well, what a beautiful day. I think I'll avoid illness and disease. We look at prevention as the prevention of illness and disease. We tie prevention to sickness. But for living our lives well, as the way in which it should be tied to health. So prevention should be aligned with health and not with disease if we really want to be mindful about making a difference. And then I found out about this organization, I think it's called American Heart, and they use this motto, life is why. Well, really, health should be aligned with, and prevention, to life. So AHA was just right on target. It's about how I live my life, how I maximize and authenticate my existence. It's about mindfulness and prudence. And when I was younger, that's what I looked like. So I talk about the person, going back to the person, with his person centricity. We need to move away from the patient. And the reason I say that is that I'm the one that in the literature created the idea of patient-centric that pharma went crazy with. And as soon as I saw it in print, I thought, dummy, you did the wrong thing. Patients are passive, subservient, wounded, vulnerable. They're put in situations of enforced helplessness, and yet we want them to be adherent. We want them to change their life. How's that going to happen? People, on the other hand, if it matters or if it's sufficiently important, they can do anything. And that's where we need to go. Each of us is unique and distinct. We are the people most interested in our own well-being. Back to a behavioral symphony of wellness, harmony from the parts, balance in our lives, not too much, not too little, orchestrated structure from potential chaos, and technology can help that dramatically, and mindful blending of the elements and the components. So again, we want to move from rescue reactive care to prevention and health as a mainstay. Again, AHA understands it, and I think we can take that next step in really being, and I think Eric, you said this, really more mindful about that health model, moving from the patient to the person, and then getting places like CMS that pay for sickness, or we know that even our CPT is based on procedures and not cognitive thinking of the physician, the clinician, where that's so important. Maybe we start thinking about changing our payment models for healthier persons and populations, and incent helping people get and stay healthier, and not just dealing with illness and disease. So in engagement, we've talked about a lot of this 24/7. I'm just going to ignore that. The manner in which any of us make our routine health and life decisions are never made, I believe, never as a patient, but only as a person. Patients don't change, people do. And it's kind of gratuitous for us to, I think about how many hours outside of in work do any of us spend in the clinical setting or with our physician? Half hour a year? 2 visits would be what? 18 minutes? 30 minutes? And yet the default is we're patients. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, most of the time I'm not a patient. In fact, I will never be a patient again. I don't want to be in that passive role. I'm just me. I have a friend who's on the Olympic team, Paralympic team. She's 41 years old. She's the 6th fastest woman in the world. She's got all these autoimmune diseases. She's 98% blind. And she has to go to Yale, New Haven 6 times a year to have the tubes in her eyes drained, surgeries. I said, surely you're a patient. She said, I am not. I'm a person. What's the first thing your physician asks you when you come to his practice? How was your last race? Second question, what was your time? That's a person. That's a person who needs help, and the clinician has that knowledge to be able to help her. It's a collaborative relationship. It's people working together, 2 persons. It's all about the person. Don't eat this stuff. Those are Krispy Kreme donuts for the buns. Small changes incrementally can make huge differences. And remember, it's all about the person. Thank you.